Hey, we're here. Hey guys, it's Pete, and we're here to talk about Pluribus, season 1, episode 8. I'm really excited about this. Whenever I started, like when I've done live streams in the past, I've always had a dedicated host who signed up in the beginning to make sure that I knew that I would have coverage, so I wouldn't have to do any of this alone. And this time, because of the holidays and different stuff, I just sort of threw it out there and asked a bunch of different people. And, we sort of had a sign up. And I think this one, I think the lineup today really kind of fell into place for something like in a really good way, because this episode, it does a couple of things. It's, we're in the penultimate episode point where things are really crucial, and I really liked how this episode they did two things at the same time, like simultaneously. You had this really huge exposition dump about a lot of the information about the hive, how it works, like what we kind of answers to our big questions, but at the same time we have a full-blown romance story going on the other side. So it's embedded inside that. And, for me, in the way my brain works, I'm just sort of like thinking about the mechanics of it all, like how these things work as far as the creative process of like, what were they going for? How are they trying to bring that to light and bring that out and make it a really compelling story? And so like, I listened to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast because I knew Ebube and Cris were coming on, and they had some really interesting things to say about the romance side of it. And then Miscellaneous Gab, this is your first time here, and I'll have you introduce yourself in a second. But you kind of, your channel and your content kind of goes more into the theory sides of things. And so, I listened to your video earlier and you were hitting on a lot of the stuff that I was thinking about there. So I think this will be a pretty good lineup for this particular episode, which I really did like a lot. And there's a lot of stuff to get into, so we'll just jump into it. But I'll have you guys go around, introduce yourselves, and just a general, what do you think? Where are you at on this episode now that you had a couple of days to process?
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me on, Pete, and great to chat with everyone on this live as well as everyone in the comments. My name is Miscellaneous Gab. I make a lot of theory videos covering Severance, Pluribus, other sci-fi shows and movies. And I absolutely loved this episode. Definitely one of the best standout of the season. And I think the more I sat with it, the more I was able to unpack, kind of like you were saying, Pete. There's like a whole romance story. There's like a movie within this episode, but then there's so much that applies to not only the theories, but just the story overall and the direction of the season. So I think there's like 5 different levels that you can appreciate this particular episode on. So I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to get into the discussion on it.
Yeah. And thanks for you were a few of your you were participating in the chat in earlier live streams. I saw you in there, and some of your viewers were saying, you should get her on here or whatever. And we had talked before. I think we first talked during Severance, and so yeah, we were. It just kind of worked out because I had somebody else that was supposed to be here initially. So whenever you first asked, I was like, well, I don't think I got any room because, the way I told you I set this up, like people signed up, like, it was right away because of the way that we did it. And so, yeah, it all worked out really, really good. So I'm glad to have you here. Cris, I wanted to go to you next. And I also wanted to ask you, because when I was listening to your podcast episode, you reminded me of something I saw on your Twitter feed, which was some pictures from an event that you attended in New York, maybe a couple of weeks ago now. And so I wanted to, if you can maybe tell my viewers a little bit about that too, because it looks like a pretty cool event.
Yes. Well, I'm Cris, and I'm from the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. We've been covering the whole show throughout these weeks. So our last episode will be after the finale, which I'm sad about, but it's been such a fun season. So yes, I was invited to Apple TV's Behind the Screen event in New York, and they basically had all of these different experiential exhibits for all of their shows. So it included like F1, Severance, The Morning Show, etc. But my favorite was Pluribus, obviously, because that is my current obsession and hyperfixation. So we came in and they had a replica of Carol's living room, and they didn't do this for everybody, but for certain people, they got their names and they had their name pop up on the TV, and they literally had someone like Davis Tassler talking to them as if they were Carol, asking them to join them, which was really cool. So we saw it happen for one of the other girls that was at the event. And then they also had the milk carton dumpster, and you could just go inside and take a picture, which was really fun. We got the costume designers to smuggle us some milk cartons out of there, which was really cool. So now I have my own little milk carton. There's like there's a puzzle on the back, which is kind of fun. You probably can't see it, but anyways. And then the cool part was that they had all of the real costumes from the show there. So that's like Zosha's outfit. Those shoes are very worn. So she definitely went through something, like not just in those last 48 hours since the virus, because they were, pretty torn up there. They also had like Carol's like real leather jacket that was totally custom made. They had like some of the costumes from, so you have like Mr. Diabate's outfit on the left. The dress is from
the
Vegas.
Leopard skin is really cool that they have that there.
Yes, I actually got to try on that jacket. I didn't give you a picture of that, but they let us try on some of the stuff. But yeah, the costume designer was like, "Oh, that's literally because he is a guy on the prowl, so they're literally in animal print to show that." We got to talk to the head costume designer, Jennifer Bryan, and then the assistant costume designer, Katie Murphy. And we talked to them for like a long, long time. I don't know. Some things we got into was color theory. So, Carol's yellow jacket is representing caution. So it's a little less obvious than red danger, but kind of has that impending sense that something is coming. And then also just logistically, she says it's something that glows in the dark more at night, and they knew they had a lot of night shoot scenes. There's a lot of blue on the show, and so she talked about Carol using blue almost as a sort of like antidepressant, like something to calm you down when you're angry. So especially like in episode 3, you can see she's wearing a lot of like casual blue shirts. And what else do we talk about? Oh, we also talked about just how feminine versus masculine Carol dresses as well. And so they ended up with like more skirt options for when Carol is at her book events, because she wouldn't even want to entertain the idea that Helen was anything more than her manager in public. So publicly she'll dress a lot more feminine, which we see in that first episode as well.
That didn't really occur to me, that directly until I heard you mention that on the podcast, was that, because I mean, obviously that's our first introduction to her, and we see her in that light, but that completely reframes what she's doing there. You know what I mean? Like she's not doing it because she wants to be more, more in tune with her followers or her fandom or whatever. She's really trying to cover it up right from the beginning.
Yeah, and same thing with her gala dress, right? Because that would be from a big book gala that you would go to, and there's plenty of women that wear nice suits at these events, but she is someone that would still go with the dress because she just doesn't even want to entertain the fact that she is a lesbian and has a wife. And then you can see too, they had these lookbooks, so it was cool to kind of see the different ideas they had for each scene and then what they landed on. So like, for example, like Helen and Zosha are kind of mirroring each other. So they had a lot of skirt options for both of them, but because they landed on like pantsuit options for one, then they landed on pant options for the other one. So she did kind of talk about like the Helen and Zosha connection, because Zosha is emulating Helen in a certain sense.
Yeah, she definitely channeled her in this episode. And I'm sure that's something that we'll come back around to. But yeah, thanks for sharing those with us, because that looks like it was a lot of fun. Ebube, how's it going?
Pretty good, Pete.
Been a few weeks since you've been here.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, the show has been so crazy since then. Like, I feel like those were simpler times. Those were literally simpler times. I was honestly just like thinking about the progression of the show up until this point, and like covering it every week has kind of been amazing because it's like there's just new information that changes the paradigm every single time. Like the format of Cris and I's conversations on the podcast, it just keeps expanding because like there's so much to talk about, and then we sometimes I feel like we have to recall like other things from previous episodes, but there's barely even time to do that because there's just so much new stuff to talk about. And I'm thinking about what the finale is going to be, and it could, at this point, I feel like it could be anything, but I know it's going to involve a lot of Menusos. So I'm very curious about that because I'm very curious about him specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been quite a ride, and I'm definitely glad to be back on here.
Yeah, it's good to have you guys. Both of you were here earlier in the season, then there was a bit of a break, and now you're back. And next week, I'm not really sure what to do because they changed the date on the finale.
Yes, they did.
But it's also Christmas. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know. I'm still planning on doing the Sunday stream. That's been locked down for a while. Courtney is going to be here for that. Aaron will be here for that. Cris, I think you're coming back for that one too. So
I am
definitely going to be doing that. I might add another one in the middle just because of the downtime, but it just kind of depends on the holiday. Like I personally don't really do much for the holiday where I'm at. So like, but I don't know what other people's schedule would be, but that's just something I'm throwing out there now. We still will be doing next Sunday, but there might be another one since we're getting the finale early. So one thing that I've been thinking about a lot as far as how this, like, as I said, for me, like I've sort of think about how this all affects the larger picture, like the way they structured the story and what they're trying to do in the story they're trying to tell. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot since I made my video that didn't really factor too much into how I experienced the episode the first time I saw it was this idea. And I heard you guys talk about this on Popcorn for Dinner. This idea that, like, yes, you kind of want Zosha to be, you kind of want Zosha to be saved from the hive, like to bring her back. But at the same time, that would effectively kill the Zosha that we have come to know and care about this season in a lot of ways, right? So like these are the things that really, make Pluribus for me. And one of the things, like, there's a little bit of a hint of her, she talks about this very personal story about the mango ice cream and this looking at the big ships when she was a kid. And, you think, well, she has this look on her face like she really loved that. And you think, yeah, she's really enjoying that personal memory. But then she says, and now I know, about where the ships are, what the ships were and where they were going. And she has that same look of joy, like in equal measure. So it's sort of like in a way that didn't really hit me when I watched it the first time, is that yes, she's fully aware of who she was. She's very, she really has those memories she loves, but she also loves this thing that she's a part of now. You know what I mean? Yeah. And man, that's kind of messed up when you think about it. I don't know. I don't know where I want to go with that in particular, but that's just something that I've been thinking about a lot. Like, do you guys want to see, like, do you want to see Zosha broken free from the hive?
I want a little more time with this Zosha for sure, because I just love Carolina's performance right now. And we obviously did lose her for 3 episodes, I think. So I feel like I want a little more time with her, how she is. I also just think the idea of Carol falling in love with the hive is so fascinating. I think some people want to see her as more of an individual, almost in the same way that I think Carol is struggling and wants to see her as an individual because it's easier to comprehend. But I think the idea that no, she is still part of the hive, you are just falling in love with who the hive is such a fascinating concept that I would like to have longer with her before we break her out. But I think breaking her out will be a plot point that the show does eventually get to. I don't see how it doesn't down the line. I feel like it's kind of set up that way. But because they already set up like little small connections between them. Basically, Zosha loving giant ships, and Carol literally writes about pirate ships. So that was kind of my first inkling of hope that if they do ever get her out, maybe there will be some connection. They won't necessarily hate each other. Maybe there's something there, but we'll see what they do down the line.
I also think there's this, remember that scene in the hospital where Zosha told Carol, like, we know what it's like to be you, but you don't know what it's like to be us. And I feel like that's come up a lot of like, have you ever asked the hive, do you know what it's like? Ask what this feeling is like. Even Carol trying to explain how the feeling is like. And I do agree with you, Cris. I want more time with Zosha, but I hope that whenever, if ever she does break free, that will be the answer, because Carol's never asked. She's never straight up said, well, what is it like to be you? Even though we have this feeling that the other unaffected have asked that question and then want to therefore protect the hive. So I'm hoping that we get an answer, and maybe it's a lot darker than the happy-go-lucky, or maybe it truly is wonderful and Zosha's actually quite upset and depressed to be back in just her body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a question too if she'll remember what happened in this if they take her out, right? We have no idea how this works. Maybe she doesn't remember any of her time in there, or maybe she does. And then I'd love to get an answer, like you said, as to whether she'd be kind of depressed being back, or be like, yeah, let me back in because it was so great, and now I don't feel that happiness that I once experienced.
Yeah. That's a lot to ask us. I mean, if she did come out, then Carol, all the burden of like being a good person, partner, everything, like all of her eggs would be in the Carol basket kind of in that situation, right? So like that's a lot. That's a huge burden that Carol would have to take on in a way too, you know, because it would be her fault in a way if she brought her out of there, or she tried to break her out of there.
And the thing is, the relationship that is causing her to want to break her out is the exact thing that will be lost if she is broken out. So it's just this weird paradox, because you're trying to get more of what you want by literally destroying it. So she's going to have to make some kind of choice. But at the same time, even if Zosha does come out, there's no telling what that person is going to be like, right? So yeah, it's a bit of a sticky situation, because obviously the hive knows exactly, well, maybe not exactly, they said they're still figuring out, but they have a pretty good idea of what it's going to take them down. So I guess it's a question of, if Zosha comes out of the hive, would she then want to like literally like try and destroy the hive, fight with Carol? I don't know if there's anything about like, I guess on Zosha's part, kind of defending the hive. But then again, if Zosha does have any memories, she's probably just going to be like, wait, aren't you the person who tried to kill me? So yeah, like it could go south really fast. Like there's actually no telling. There's so many different possibilities.
Yeah, we saw the wounds from the grenade incident on her back pretty front and center here. Like that's something that Carol is responsible for. This I put this comment up here because this is another way to look at it too, right? This episode is called Charm Offensive. Obviously, that was Carol. That has to do with Carol trying a different strategy, but also, I mean, is she falling in love with the hive, or is she just falling into their trap of seduction that they're setting up for her? Because that's the fun part, right? Is because we're going to make it what we want it to be, in the same way that Carol is sort of, you know, taking the lemons that life gave her and making lemonade and saying like, well, yeah, I do want to save humanity, but at the same time, like that's not really an option. So like I could be miserable and like freak out and lose my mind for 40 days alone. And, you know, or I could try to do something different, and doing something different seems to not be that bad of an idea.
Yeah, I do find it notable too that, you know, their argument into the kiss all comes from a place of honesty. That's where they are most open with each other. Carol says, "I'm never going to stop. I'm still going to try to change the world." And Zosha's like, "Yeah, we literally know that. We're aware of that. And we want you to stop actually, but we also love Waikaro." And they're honest about that. Those things are both true because from the beginning, all they've wanted is to make Carol happy. They've been clear they love everything equally, everything and everyone. So I think both of those things are true. Like I think the intent of their actions is pure, even if the effect is manipulative, because it is still sort of coercing her into doing something, which in this case they want her to write to kind of distract her from her mission, or they want her to write because it'll make her happy, right? It's the way you look at it there. But yeah, it's a question of like how much are you being manipulated if you know you're being manipulated, right? Because she knows exactly what they're doing, but I think she's making an active choice of, hey, I want to be happy, because exactly like you said, you're looking down the barrel of 30, 40 years of the rest of your life of being alone and being unhappy. And if you are accepting the situation for what it is, then it's like, hey, this is a new world order. This is love in this new world, because old love as it was doesn't really exist anymore. So I'm going to take it now. And, you know, I think it's notable. Like she didn't have to start, she could have, even if she was just attracted to Zosha and she slept with her, she didn't have to start writing Waikaro the next day either. I think she was basically just taking their advice of like, hey, let me lean into what's going to make me happy. And ultimately they're right about that, because I've never seen Carol happier than sitting on those steps the next morning and geeking out over her work and being proud and happy of it for the first time. So, yeah, it's interesting the way you choose to look at it as to how much is her being manipulated versus just willfully deluding herself and actively choosing that.
It's almost like Stockholm syndrome in a way. I mean, she's like in love with her captor, so to speak, which I didn't even think about until we were talking about this, the kind of love versus seduction aspect of it.
You mean Carol or Zosha?
Carol mostly, but I mean, I think there's a lot of parallels to both of their situation. Like Carol's falling for, if we agree that she is falling for Zosha, which is the hive. Zosha is the hive, which is, I think, this kind of block that she has to put in her brain in order. She has to see Zosha for the individual in order to love her. But then there's this irony that she's falling in love with her like captor, so to speak, or the hive, the force responsible for her predicament.
Do you think it's possible that the hive on some level almost has this sense of regret / dread that, you know, once they do turn Carol, they're going to lose literally all art forever? Because the level of excitement when there was something new to read was very palpable.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, oh, please keep doing this. And then it made me wonder if Carol was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this because, you know, I'm learning more, because they're sharing more, because they're more open, because I'm more open. So it's almost like the title of the episode is Charm Offensive, right? So it's like Carol is taking a new approach to be charming, and the hive is also trying to be charming, and they have different ways of knowing how to be charming with Carol, because, you know, they have Helen's memories, hence the, you know, the sarcastic banter and knowing how to use that, as well as pretty much any other person who would have known Carol, right? So I feel like that's an interesting sort of perspective, because Carol is trying to figure out how to navigate this, but then again, I feel like she's sort of falling for her own trap in a sense, because like she's digging herself into a hole. It's like the plan is so good that it's working too well that she's kind of forgotten what she's supposed to be doing here. But I guess that's what she's afraid of anyway. She does say that in the episode.
Yeah, I wanted to get to this question here because I one of the things that I really enjoyed is something you're touching on there, is the way that you saw her light up with this Waikaro stuff that she said was mindless crap earlier. Like I think she understated how much that means to her which is so relatable because, you know, like you could say like, I have this shit job that I have to do this thing or whatever, but like human nature is to really actually apply yourself to something and then feel like a sense of accomplishment and everything else. And then, you know, like just saying, oh, well, it's mindless crap because that's easy. But at the same time, like you have true feelings for whatever it is you spend your time doing. And you have, you know, you have this way that this human way of kind of like making that make sense because you have to or whatever. But yeah, just real quick, Mr. Weeping Dalek, thank you for the A799. Do you think the hive could be broken, but people would exclusively experience happiness? And I'm not 100% sure what you're asking. Like
I think maybe
like,
they're trying to say, like, does the hive and the happiness part have to be put
that's
together,
what I'm
or
thinking.
They can be spread apart?
Like if you could separate out the good feeling vibes, like the sort of like the intoxication or whatever you would call it, the infection of happiness without the shared mind. I don't think that's possible. I think these two things kind of, I mean, that's not the way that I expected the story might turn out, but I guess it's possible.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the pod about how we are not sure if the happiness aspect is because if you put everybody together, then and you had no judgment between all the different opinions and information in your head, then these sort of better ideas would win out. And because you're all connected, that's why you're experiencing happiness, because there's no judgment in between you. Or if there is something within the virus that like is controlling people to make them happy versus it being a byproduct of just mixing everyone together. I'm not really sure.
But my question then becomes, is it like, the more we learn about these people, it's like, is it really happiness or is it just self-assuredness? Because there's technically no conflict in the world because the world is only one person. There's no conflict to have. And the one time there was conflict, they ran out of town and left her in Albuquerque because, yeah, that's kind of how they have to deal with that. And then they had to figure out how to come back and build on it. So thinking about everything you just said, it makes me wonder, like, if what we're talking about is truly happiness, because then the separation becomes possible. Because if the happiness is not necessarily a feature of the hive and they're only just happy because there is no way for them to truly be in conflict with anyone or anything, then perhaps if the hive was broken up, the happiness would go away because then people would have conflict again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a central question of the show too, and if you bring it down to what is happiness, because I think that's going to be Carol's choice now, right? Like, do you choose happiness with Zosha, which is kind of this like forever little fantasy world you've created, and Zosha's never going to have a conflict with you ever because she's not programmed that way? And would life eventually get boring, even though you're having a really nice time now? Or do you fight for a world where there's a lot of horrible things, right? Grief, pain, conflict, disappointments. You're going to go back to a world where maybe you feel like you have to go back in the closet, right? You're judged, all of that. But maybe you feel like you need all of those things to experience happiness, because maybe you need the lows to experience the highs, and that will eventually feel better than something you have going on with Zosha for like a very long time.
Yeah, I think that's the argument, right? Is that you can't have true happiness if you don't have struggle, you don't have suffering, something to compare it to. If everything is good all the time, what does it even mean anymore? I think is the argument against. I was just real quick, I wanted to hit on this because this is something I see come up all the time, and it's not something that I've ever been terribly curious about. Personally, it's sort of like the pets. Like people were asking about the pets that we finally got an answer about in this episode. And I guess like for me, I was just like, well, I'm sure they'll mention the pets at some point. You know what I mean? Like I like pets. I'm a pet owner, and I'm curious, but it wasn't like I didn't feel like there was anything nefarious going on. I feel the same way with the children. So go for thank you for the 10. I'm still curious as to see what's going on with the infants and toddlers with underdeveloped brains. Are they born connected to the hive, or is it something that develops as their brain matures? Anybody got a theory on that?
I keep comparing it to Aaliyah in Dune, like just the baby that's born with the memory of like the ancestral memory and sentience. I'm with you, Pete. I don't think about it all that much. And we've seen kids kind of operating in the hive. We saw that boy in the hospital doing his thing. So I think that as soon as sentience would kick in, I don't really know exactly how old you have to be for that you're plugged in to the hive and can probably speak in the same way as an adult, which is probably weird and unsettling. And that's probably why they don't want too many kids in the show, because it would come off as odd. But that's my 2 cents.
Aaliyah's a really good character comparison. I can see that now. Yeah.
I think that makes the most sense to me. Like I said, I think more than anything, I just don't think there's something nefarious going on, like where they're, training the babies or doing something like unethical. They don't cut grass. They don't pick apples. I think they're probably, it's probably not the way that they interact with the immune, but they do take care of each other. We saw a little bit of that here whenever we saw the, at the where they sleep, we saw like the people helping the older people get into bed and things like that. So I think it's kind of hard to imagine exactly what being a part of the organism is, but I feel like that is kind of the bottom line of what we need to know to sort of think about it is that they're a part of it. So just depending on when they're consciousness or just how regular kids are, like I don't remember anything that happened to me before a certain age. I think we're all about the same in that, that way. The hive, it might be slightly different, but they probably do have access to the entire thing right from the time they pop out. Carnivore today, thank you for the 10. Hear me out. My name is Manusos Oviedo. I am not one of them. I wish to save the world, and there's an equal sign there. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. The Princess Bride. Yeah, I've seen the people make this comparison quite a bit. It's funny. I feel like the tone is slightly different, but both they're both pretty memorable mantras, right? I don't know what else there is to add. So to go back to the episode of, or I guess maybe the connection between this situation, but with the new romance that is maybe, some of it's real, some of it's manipulation, some of it is about individuality. Did you guys come away with because I see a lot of people talking about this, and this wasn't something that I thought that much about. I thought, like, did you guys come away from this thinking that her, bringing this idea of her memory up somehow started to disconnect Zosha from the hive? Like there's a moment where she does that pause, and I read that completely as she was getting a message that Manusos was coming to town, and other people interpreted this as a slight glitch because of the individual memories. Was anybody on where did you guys land on that?
For me, that was definitely Manusos is here and we're in trouble.
Yeah. It's the same look as episode 2 when Carol's asking for the meeting with the other survivors, and she just kind of glitches out for a second and is like, they all said yes, let's go. So I feel like it was the same kind of like she does the same thing, like down into the right. So I think she has kind of a tell when she's doing that. I know. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I'm on the opposite side, and I thought more people were. So I love hearing that you guys are like 3 of you aren't, because for me, I think I would have maybe not thought about it if the memory of Carol's diner hadn't been so focal to this episode. Watching this episode actually made me do a little research into memories and like neural networks and the senses. And when they recreated the diner, you know, they had like police sirens outside. They brought someone there, the smells, the 5 senses, everything. And I learned in my research that when you're remembering something, you're actually rebuilding a memory, and it's like different parts of your brain are activated. It's not like you're just replaying a movie. And I think because that memory was so powerful to Carol, it inspired her to start writing again. We saw her, like you said, more happy and excited than we've ever seen her before. The way Zoja was talking about the memory where she was setting the scene, the ships, the sea, like I felt like she was rebuilding it in a way. And so I felt like she was back there personally. And I'll probably have to go rewatch when she was in episode 2, because I've seen her instantaneous chat with the Hive when it's all happening at once. And I figured that they've known Manousos is coming. They've known he's on his way for a long time. So I would think that it was just kind of a constant stream of like, okay, Manousos is in Mexico. Now he's at the top of Mexico. Now he's in Texas. Like he's coming. So I wouldn't have predicted that it would be such a glitch of like, oh crap, SOS, he's here. And that's part of why, plus the diner, that I really think that the power of memory, it could be a hint here into little flashes of her and kind of severing. We'll probably talk later about like what is keeping them together, that glue, that could be powerful enough in the brain to kind of temporarily block or at least weaken the noise of the psychic glue that's holding them all together.
Yeah, I think those are both interesting points. The scene in episode 2 almost feels like a reference. Like there almost feels like there's a direct reference here now that I think about it. But at the same time, there could be a lot more going on. And, you know, this is, I guess we could probably transition a little bit to talking about some of the things that we learned, because one of the things that we learned is that they communicate through this electromagnetic, like, what does she call it? It's a, it has to do with their electromagnetic
charge.
field.
Yeah.
But she calls it electric charge, right? Like your electric charge. Okay. So, so we have that, but that is not the only thing. That's not, you know, like if that was just the answer to the whole thing right now, that they just, you know what I mean? Like it sort of can't be that simple. Right. So, I think that this idea of the way thoughts are created is very interesting in the context of what's going on.
Yeah. Like I wasn't sure if Zosha was really disconnecting here in this scene particularly, but this made me think about that idea of if there's any way more through like brain training or psychology to remove people from the Hive. Like, I don't know. In the same way, like, I don't know, if you have anxiety in real life and you go out, you're supposed to think of yourself as a confident person. And then if you do that enough times, then eventually you just become a confident person. So I don't know if there's anything here of like, if you start to think of yourself as an individual over a period of time, if you can eventually almost tap into it. But I don't know. It kind of just depends if the show is going to go down that more psychological route in terms of being able to remove people, or if it really is just going to be fully scientific with like the radio signals going somewhere with low electromagnetism to remove people. Kind of just depends what kind of approach they take. But I do feel like there was a lot with Carol being like a writer though, and introducing new art and new ideas and seeing how much that excited the Hive. And I would like to see that come to fruition down the line, even in the next season, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a few times already, but the way that they were talking about these details and you have Zosha here is obviously like her biggest fans. She's sort of addressing that point of view, but at the same time, it felt really individual to her, like to the character. Zosha was really enjoying that because of the way this is having an effect on the hive. So that's something to think about, right? As like this, having them have these moments, like with the train, whenever they didn't know about this one detail that she liked train horns because she thought they were the loneliest sound in the world. They got really excited about that because, of course, they can't be surprised by anything because they know everything, And there's also this idea that they introduced earlier in the episode that the individual feels and the hive knows. So I feel like that's really essential as far as something is concerned too. So that's another place where you could talk about, like, well, if she did connect with that feeling that she had that was really important to her when she was a kid, maybe that is a different way of separating,
Mm-hmm.
So there's good points on both of them. I think what the reason why I sort of discredit it when I'm looking at the thing and I'm writing about the episode is because then I think, well, what does that even mean? Because if you bring Zosha back, then she's this different person that we never met before. And so then that just kind of fucks my mind in a different way, So like the idea of it just not being able to, just her just thinking about Manusos is just, there's less dissonance involved in that particular interpretation, I guess. I saw a couple of other questions here I wanted to get to really quick. Thanks again for the $7.99. When do you think we'll see the other non-English speaking survivors? My thought on this would be it's related to, like, we know that they think that they have 3 or 4 seasons. There's a lot of different things. Like there's a lot of things that would have to happen. Like it can't be just this core group of characters all the way out. You know what I mean? So I think I think that you give yourself there's a question now that they know about the stem cells that maybe not all of them are even not in the hive anymore. Like like it's possible to convert some of them, but I feel like you keep a couple of them off screen so that you can bring them in later to play a role when you need somebody like that. What do you guys think? Do you think we're going to see them all, or do you think that's just something that's I
think future seasons, with just one more episode, I don't think we'll see them now. But if you think about it, Carol in this episode, now that she is in a relationship with Zosha, I think she could probably understand the other survivors a lot more now, right? Like she should be able to relate to Lakshmi. Lakshmi's desperate to see her son as her son, the same way Carol's now desperate to see Zosha as an individual and has to try to train her to use I pronouns and is like, please eat normal food. I don't want to be reminded that you drink people, like she's doing all of those things to just make her feel like a real person again.
Kind of messed up, right?
It's just kind of messed up. Drinking people, like that's
well, I feel like she's getting special privileges, right? She gets a fluffy bed. She doesn't have to sleep on the floor like the old woman that they
yeah. But I mean, as far as like relationship, like as far as starting a new relationship, like training your potential partner that directly is kind of gross, right?
Yeah. And especially
I'm saying this with the idea that, of course, we're talking about a different reality. Like this is not, you can't apply things that we do in our world 1-to-1 to what people are doing in this world.
Yeah. Wait, I forget.
But I think it's going to be concerning, this idea that because it's like, she's saying use I because that makes me more comfortable. Right. You know what I mean? It's not like there's no real good reason other than that. Like, I don't want to remember what I'm doing right now as I enter a relationship with the hive is the way that I read it.
Yeah. I think it's for her. And then also like, I don't know, almost like, oh, that's kind of weird of you. Why can't you just say I think it's just this, I don't know, just this disbelief that they have to operate the way you do. Like, why can't you just pick an apple off a tree? Why can't you just say I? it's like when your partner's just not exactly who you want them to be, right?
Yeah.
They think they're burdened, but she thinks they are essentially making a choice to take their own demise.
Yeah, because they're just being natural. They're just saying what comes natural to them. Being themselves in that sense. Does anybody know if, because this is something I thought about too, does anybody know if the Faraday cage does that deal with radio signals or just electromagnetic energy in the way that they're talking about it here? Anybody?
Yeah, it can block like everything. So if it blocks the radio signals, cellular signals, like it can electromagnetic signals. So it will, if they are connected via radio waves, that would cut them off for sure. That'd be like the one way to do it, other than going down in like a submarine.
Yeah, so Manusos gets here. He says, I know about the frequency that they communicate with, and they put 2 and 2 together. They think about a Faraday cage. They take her in there. I mean, that's something that could happen in the next episode. I mean, it's that simple, right? Like, we don't know what would happen to her if she is disconnected from the hive, but it could be that simple to just break her free from the hive in that way.
Did you guys see the volcano Reddit theory? Like, I guess they've mentioned volcanoes a lot over the show, like the volcanic soil in Carol's yard.
I saw you post about it, but I didn't know about it firsthand. So you could tell us.
There's a whole Reddit theory that I think actually would make more sense after this episode, because they talk about the electric charge and the electromagnetic field to communicate. So I think the idea is that you would just take Zosha to a place with like low electromagnetism, and then also where maybe the radio signals can't reach. And then that would pull her out. And I don't know if it's because they filmed on the Canary Islands and there's a lot of like, volcanoes there. So then people were like, oh, maybe they'll take her over there and then they can talk to like regular Zosha. There's probably more to the theory. It was like very like well substantiated as to like how they put this all together. But I was like, that sounds right, potentially.
I mean, but volcanoes sound cool. You know what I mean? Like, so I like it for that reason.
Yeah, I wonder where they're gonna get that knowledge from, because I feel like Carol and Manusos are going to have to put their brains together. He just knows that there's something up with this radio signal. Carol's learned a lot about the hive. And remember in, I think, episode 1 or 2, when she's aboard Air Force One, she's like, all right, do we have any biologists in the house? Like virologists, like we need this collective mind together. And I kind of wonder if she would even if Manusos is a radio fan, if he would even know enough, like to know, okay, we got to get this girl to a volcano, or kind of what other information they would need to source. Because Carol's just a writer and Manusos is like a radio enthusiast, storage unit owner, potentially ex-military special ops. Like, I don't know what's going on with him.
Character description, it doesn't tell us anything about him. I mean, it's completely on point. I mean, that's what he is. But when you put those two things together, it doesn't necessarily add up to much, does it? It's so fun.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of work to do to put everything together, that's the only thing I'm hesitant about for the last episode. I'm like, how much can they do in a single episode? Episode 2 was an hour long, and I feel like that was a pretty packed episode where they did go through a lot. So if it's kind of paced like episode 2, then maybe, but I don't know. I'm just not sure like how much of some of these theories I'm having that they can actually get through in one episode. So we'll see.
I kind of also wonder, like, to what extent the hive can step in, because I was wondering, like, Zosha came back to Albuquerque, but so did all of the hive. And even though I think it is to make Carol feel comfortable and they want to put the cafe there, I feel like they also have to keep an eye on Carol, because they know Carol has tried some bad things before to hurt Zosha and to kind of figure out the truth. So I do wonder, I mean, I know they had to ask her, like, can we help resuscitate Zosha? But if they see Carol and Manusos and Zosha get in a car, start driving to a volcano, like, at what point would they step in? Because, like, Carol's convinced that they interfere or desert when she's getting closer to the truth.
And I mean,
yeah, the
there's something
chaperones,
to
the idea of chaperones, like watching out for them and making sure they're not figuring too many things out, keep them distracted.
Yeah, that's the term chaperone is not a thing that Diabate brought up, just made up out of nowhere. Like that's the term they use, right? Like that's the function that they serve, is they're chaperoning these immune around. And yeah, there's a lot. There's, you know, with Carol, we talked about this a lot about the atom bomb request. You know, like there's an actual thing of like, well, of course it's a threat for her to have a bomb, but she can also get angry about us not giving them the bomb, or not giving her the bomb, and she can scream at us and kill millions if we're not expecting it or whatever. So maybe having the bomb, like maybe appeasing her for every one of her whims is better than rolling the dice and hoping she doesn't freak out on us, you know. This is a question that I've heard before at the bottom here. Ariozone, thank you for the $4.99. Just fluff, but any of you think there's a playfulness to Carol's books being named Why Caro, one that's close to sounding like Why Carol?
Oh.
Love it.
I actually hadn't thought of that, and I think that is cute.
I've never thought of that before, and I actually just love it. Like that's
funny.
This is great.
Yeah, I saw someone else bring it up, and it was the same thing. I was like, I never thought of that, but yeah, cool. We got another one here. I have no problem with them eating people, but I do have a problem with them going extinct in the next 10 years, which is this is something that I saw quite a bit when I was looking at some of the threads earlier today. We did a huge thing that we found out this week is that they are building the antenna. That does seem to be their number. Like that seems to be in their hierarchy of what they're doing. That's right up there at the top with the idea of spreading, right? This idea of spreading is kind of the be all end all. And since they've almost finished that on Earth, that's the next step, is to build this. So survival may not really factor into their existence, right? Where do you guys come down on that? Do you think that it's a situation where that just supersedes the need to survive, or is the love that they feel, does contentment tell them that like that's good enough? You know what I mean? Like you can stop the world and we'll just get off here because we've already experienced everything that we need to experience. Now we need to just share this with the next civilization down the line, and our existence will be complete.
Yeah, I think it's just how a virus operates, right? Like a virus just wants to spread. And I think a lot of times it would be easier if a virus actually didn't kill as many people. Like, I don't know if you think about like COVID a few years ago, right? Or, you know, it would have been better. You could hit more people if you didn't kill people off, right? But I think sometimes a virus doesn't care. It's just doing its thing. It's not actually thinking about it. And so I think they have this, that's their biological imperative. Like, we just have to spread. I mean, they don't even understand themselves. They don't even know where it came from. And yet they just know they have to spread it. And so again, I think it's like, oh, God, that's that question again, right? Is the biological imperative making them think it's this gift that's so great that they have to spread? Or is the gift so great that they think they have to spread it? And that's that like chicken and the egg that I literally just go back and forth on as I talk about this. But yeah, I guess in terms of like their actual actions, it is just kind of following how a virus works, where like, even if it does like ultimately kill people, it kind of doesn't care. It just has to go hit more people before they die off.
Yeah,
you got all okay with them eating people?
I know we kind of skimmed over that one. No problem with
that part of the question is a little concerning. I mean, I'm not judging or anything, but
I mean, I feel like there just has to be other things for them to eat, because I feel like animals are dying too. So I'm like, were there other options first? But yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I am like Mr. Diabate, where they kind of explained it and I was like, all right.
That's
I guess
unfortunate,
so.
but it is
Yeah.
what it is.
It's
As long as
concerning.
I don't have
Okay.
to have it, right?
But man, the food they bring me is good. So,
They're still gourmet cooks when it comes to Carol.
yeah,
So.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Gab. I'll give you
Oh,
a
no, you're
second
fine.
here. But the other thing about this is, like the idea of calling the population, that doesn't really seem like anything that they would be too concerned with. Like, we got too many people. Now it's just a more manageable number.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
I
were
don't
you
think
saying,
they
Gab?
care
Sorry.
when anyone
Yeah, and
dies.
no, and I imagine they're not one. This is super minor, but when they're in the arena and Carol's like, "This isn't going to turn into the orgy scene, right?" And Carol's like, or Zoe's just like, "Not unless you want it to." And I had this thought that I talked about in my video is like, do they probably, to be responsible, it'd be irresponsible for them to procreate now. We know that there are babies being born because it's obviously only been a month and a half. But I imagine the hive would not bring more mouths to feed into this world, knowing that there's such a limited food supply. But then it was interesting to me if they'll have like the orgy or something, or risk like roll the dice on pregnancy or something like that at the whim of Kumba or Carol. It did get me thinking into like what is their policy on reproduction? Is it only like a by order system? Because I feel like I'm with you, Chris, there has to be a way to kind of figure something out, especially if more people are dying than being born and it's just the current people and they can really control the population.
Yeah.
The only thing that makes me think about that is that to be efficient, like if you have a certain amount of the population that's dying off, like if you don't reproduce, then you're going to have this aging population that can't really work efficiently. You know what I mean? So like if you were really being pragmatic about it, I think you would be like, well, we need to kill more old people that can't really contribute. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were really like not thinking about it, like these are people that have lives and that it matters or whatever, then you would say, well, we need to euthanize more of the non-working population so that we can produce more children. Like I think like if your idea is to spread, that part of that would involve reproducing, but we don't know, you know what I mean? Like that's something that we'll have to find out as it goes on. Rock the C-Pop, thank you for the 200 Thai baht. Zosha wouldn't be able to speak English without the hive. Season 2 drama. She was crazy lady wearing a burlap sack before. Nice to see Gab. Poggy YouTube, pretty cool too. So yeah, that's another thing. You put her in the Faraday cage, and all of a sudden she can't even have a conversation in English anymore.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, we don't. Yeah. Well, to be fair, we don't really know that much about her because obviously she's Polish. She's from Poland, but she was in Morocco. So like, if she is an international traveler, there is probably like higher likelihood of her speaking some English, right? I mean, not necessarily, but I do feel like a lot of people that travel internationally, like because it's kind of a language that everyone knows like a little bit of, even a bit. So maybe she knows something.
Yeah, I mean they have actual education in European countries, and that's part of the curricular is to learn English.
Yeah, because they could have just made her be from Poland, right? And then you would be like, okay, if she was born in Poland, has never left, then maybe she doesn't speak anything else. But they deliberately made it so that she is in a different country. So
a theory I did not know existed was that I saw when I was looking earlier today, I saw a lot of people talking about her being trafficked. And that just did not cross my mind at all whenever
I've seen that theory. I didn't necessarily.
Wow.
I didn't necessarily think of it on my own. Like, but I saw it.
Yeah, like I don't know how you connect those dots. You know what I mean?
I saw it earlier in the season. Like somebody was like, because of her clothes and everything, like the shoes were worn, right, and everything was just like in such terrible condition. I was like, oh, she must have been going through something terrible before. And I remember actually bringing it up on one of our discussions in the podcast, and I was like, well, that's kind of an assumption to make. Like we can't really go off of that. Like there's no evidence that that's the case. We don't know what she was doing, and I think the show does want us to make some assumptions, and then we'll figure out what exactly makes sense when the new season starts. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that it's equally as, it's equally as plausible that it is that she's just a person who grew up in Europe and is traveling around. You know what I mean? Like, I just, I don't really, I think what you said though, right there makes sense a little bit, because she looked kind of, they set up this transition from her being out there working, collecting the bodies and doing all this stuff. And she looked like she had really been through something the first few days before, she went and had that sort of makeover to go meet Carol, become Raban or whatever. But, yeah, that was something that hadn't crossed my mind. And it's one of those things like where you see people saying like, that a lot of people are saying it. Maybe it's not that so many people are saying it, or that just that the person who's arguing against had the sense that a lot of people were saying it. But one other one real quick here. Interesting. Silver Scale, thank you for the 5. Interesting, the Hive regards its point of origin with love and gratitude when they probably wiped out that place. And yeah, that's sort of what I was saying, that if the feeling of being in the Hive fills you with contentment, and you don't really like you don't really have a desire to do anything but spread the virus, then yeah, you could have love and gratitude from the point of origin without feeling bad about it not being there anymore, because the ultimate goal is for everyone to experience what you're experiencing, not live forever or something along those lines, right?
Yeah. Weird that it's like a water planet, but
yeah,
there's people there. I'm like, what? I mean, maybe they don't even look like people, right? We have no idea.
The idea
all I saw was Interstellar, like that huge wave. I'm like, how is anyone living here? Was it just a intermediary between whoever sent it before and then put a satellite there, beam it, bounce it off the water planet to Earth? I don't know. I don't think we'll ever find out.
But that's the thing, like whoever is living there might not even be anything that is like us. Like it could just be something that survives really well in water, and that's their environment. Like it's possible that there is a planet out there that the main species, like the dominant species on the planet, thrives on water and doesn't thrive on land. The same way it's the opposite for us. But one interesting thing in that question for me is this idea that the Hive probably destroyed whatever planet that was before coming here, and whatever civilization was there. That's kind of funny, because it's like they're just going from place to place, and like it's kind of reminding me of something one of our commenters said on Popcorn for Dinner, that like the Hive is sort of this civilization and world destroying virus that kind of goes from place to place, weakens the species by making everyone happy and complacent, and then everyone starves to death in 10 years, and then they go to the next planet, which is just kind of crazy. Actually, I don't even know how that would work, but it's funny to think about.
Yeah, I mean, there is a Fermi paradox kind of explanation for it, in that if somebody wanted to make sure that the civilizations in its neighborhood didn't go through these huge technological advances to where they might be able to exterminate them, then if you sent out this thing that sort of got everyone who got smart enough to decode a radio message to shoot themselves in the collective foot, as it were, you know what I mean? And you did it through happiness, it wouldn't matter. It would just mean that there would be no one there to make nuclear bombs and spaceships and whatever else to be able to come there and become a threat to you in the future. I think that's very plausible. And then I also think that there's just a chance that they made it for something else, and it just sort of turned into this. This is sort of like this is like a side effect that they weren't really expecting, and so therefore, it just continues to spread. You know what I mean? Just one planet to the next, and it's out of control. And good thing Carol Sturka's there, because she might be able to make a difference on Earth, you know?
But you wonder, like, does it ever get smarter, right? Because it's very Brave New World-esque, which is like the happiness and the bliss and the contentment being the downfall of a species. And it's very black and white. We can't kill anything. We can't use pesticides. We can't pick grass. We can't pick an apple. But maybe it needs to be that black and white, the bliss, the happiness, in order to get it to spread. Because as soon as you start asking questions or buts or what ifs or can we do this, can we do that, then you might not be mobilizing an entire planet to build a giant antenna to spread it. So it's like it spreads, but I don't think it gets any smarter, because it can just bounce around like a ping pong through the universe. But the human race won't survive longer than 10 years unless the remaining unjoined or the people can find a way. But it doesn't even seem like there is a viable way to keep them actually self-sustaining.
I wonder if, like, I don't know. I wonder if the relationship with like Zosha and Carol could be key in terms of like, can the hive ever overcome their biological imperative to make a choice that like helps her? Like, no, you know, like what if there ever comes a point where they can like override it to actually accept Carol's request for them to not turn her? Like, because I think that's kind of the main thing here, and like why the relationship is doomed, right? Because Zosha's always going to want to turn Carol, no matter what, out of love, even though Carol's like, well, yeah, I don't know. They're always going to want to turn each other. So I think it would just be interesting if the hive ever develops some sort of ability to override the biological imperative. But if they don't, they don't, and then that's why Carol has to just put the world back the way it was, because that's kind of the tragedy of it all, right? That even if they like Carol more outside of the hive, because again, she provides them art, she provides a sense of wonder and discovery, I think they like that. She provides some excitement for them, but they have to go against, you know, they can't enjoy that. They have to go with their compulsion to change her anyways, even if they would like her more outside of it. So that's what I mean. I don't know if they can never override that, then I don't know if they're ever going to get like quote unquote smarter, because it's sort of like they have to just keep doing things that are antithetical to what might be better for them in the long run.
It's an interesting question.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I lean towards what you said, that it might be necessary for it not to evolve so that it continues to spread. But go ahead and say whatever you were.
No, I was just going to say Chris's comment made me think it would be hilarious if the exception or the thing that breaks the system is Waikaro, is because they get so addicted to her books and having novelty that they're like, you know what? And that's why Carol is the one in the Pluribus, is she's like filtered everyone else. She breaks the whole chain just because her books that she's always thought were trash are that good. Yeah.
Out of one.
I know she's fully writing, like she's fully uninhibited because she's finally made Raban a woman. And I feel like maybe she was always writing from a place of restraint. And now she doesn't care. She's fully writing what she wants. And maybe her writing really is as better than Shakespeare, and it will be the missing link.
And maybe this becomes her quote unquote serious novel that she's been trying to write. This is the thing that she's like, okay, now I'm writing for real. Like I'm not trying to, you know, quote unquote pander or whatever. I also find it interesting, based on what you were just saying, Chris, how the conversation about the biological imperative has turned from us, like over through the course of the season, viewing it as a cop-out, to us now viewing it as a captor in a sense. It's like before, it's like the biological imperative is like, it's there to protect us from, you know, not giving you the things that might harm us, even though we want to give you everything. But now it's like, like we are sort of subject to this imperative. We want to be with you and give you the things you want, but hey, like, you know, the imperative, you know. And I feel like that's kind of like, it's a little bit weird, but it's ironic, because Carol's main issue with their situation is the fact that they don't have any like they don't have a choice because they've taken away all of their choices. It's like what she said in episode 6 is like, well, why don't you just pick an apple? But like they won't pick an apple. Like the idea that they will only take windfall, like they literally won't take an apple from a tree to save their life, like in a very literal sense, is frustrating for Carol. So now it's like, okay, has she kind of just put all of that behind her and she's just going to like help them figure things out? Is this how she starts helping figure things out? Because when she talked to Diabate, and she said, I could figure some stuff out. I can come up with stuff like robots all day long. She's like, I'm a writer. And that was how she was willing to sort of offer her own services. So maybe now she's just doing it like on her own, separate from the rest of the group.
Yeah. No, you reminded me of something when you were talking about how it's kind of like sad that, they can't pick an apple off a tree to save their own lives. And I was thinking about when if you go back now, if you watch Zosha drink her human juice in like the 4th episode, she kind of does this little like shudder. Like it obviously doesn't actually taste good. And it's kind of sad that these people like can't enjoy like nice things in life, like they're sleeping on the floor. Like Zosha gets special treatment, but not everyone else, right? Like they don't have like fun food, any of that. Like, so it's sad from the outside, but they don't. The thing is, they don't even realize that they're missing things, right? Because they're like, we're so happy, but they're not doing anything that would make us happy. But actually, that has me thinking. Like, I don't know. Maybe are we too materialistic, right? Like, like are they like we're so happy because we're not beholden to these material things in life that I am so obviously upholding. I don't know, but that's why I love the show. It makes you think, right? Like, am I the problem or is the hive the problem?
Yeah.
This one jumped out at me a little bit. This is something I think about. And Jim Rodney, thank you for the $9.99. He says the irony is that the virus only affects civilizations with really bad judgment. It's the sci-fi equivalent of opening an email attachment from a stranger. And I do think that there is some truth to that. I think you could say that you could think of it as a litmus test kind of thing. Like, well, if you're dumb enough to open this, then you don't really deserve to stick around or whatever. So just here we can bliss you out for a bit, and then you're just going to wither into to non-existence or whatever. But also, I think what's funny is these kinds of stories are always a play on human nature, in the way that like if you think about this, you could say, oh, well, why would they make the RNA sequence whenever they find it? And it's like, you just think about in our world, like we would 100% do that 100% of the time, because there would be some guy sitting in the thing that said, well, if we don't do it, then China will do it. Or if we don't do it, then so-and-so will do it. Like, like there's a little bit of a, there's a little bit of hubris and thinking, oh, well, we'll be the ones that'll do it responsibly or whatever, however the justification goes. But I feel like this would work 100% of the time. You know what I mean? Like it would just always, if you give someone something that they're not supposed to do because of whatever reason or however dangerous it is, people are still doing it.
Yeah. I think if you give a sentient species a code or a weird email, and I love that comment. I love Jim. Like, he's so funny. But I think if you give a sentient species that is advanced enough to build satellites and receivers, of course they're going to do it, because we had to be that curious in order to create the very mechanism for understanding the signal. Yeah,
that's a good point. If we weren't that kind of creative, we wouldn't be in a place where we could read it. And so there's a cycle of life thing there.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. To be honest, through all this too, I don't know. I mean, we'll see where the show goes, because obviously they want to do like 4 seasons. Ray's joking about like 10. So they obviously wanted to keep it going for a while, but I've definitely likened this show a little bit to like The Leftovers, where,
I think that's the best comparison.
Yeah. In that show, basically, no spoilers, but like basically 2% of the population just disappears, and you really don't get an answer at all. Like, it depends how you view the ending.
Throughout the show, like they never even
No, like that's just
No,
not
they
no,
that
it's
that's
really just
baked.
about like
They pretty much tell you in the beginning they're not going to answer it too.
yeah, because the thing is no
Wow.
one would know. It's almost more biblical, let's say, if you want to look at it that way. But the whole thing is just like, what are the effects on the people here? And so all the different characters on the show, you're just exploring grief and this whole like existential anxiety in different ways. And I mean, I wonder if this is how this show is going to be in a sense. Like Zosha's very clear, like we're never really going to know anything about these people because they're 600 light years away. And if the show stays firmly in Carol's point of view, like we don't even have we don't have the human capabilities to know about civilizations that far away, especially because the hive mind is just a conglomerate of regular people. And I don't think we have that capacity at all. So I don't know. We'll see where they go. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's like an alien invasion in season 4 or something. But I do sometimes wonder, because the show hasn't really been that twisty necessarily. So I do wonder if we're really even going to get those kinds of answers, or if it's really just if it's going to really just stay on Carol's reaction to this and maybe extend to the other survivors in later seasons. But I don't know. Well, we'll see. I feel like I bring that up as a possibility just because that's how the show has felt a little bit more to me so far.
That was my gut feeling, is that we're not ever going to meet the aliens, and we'll never really. Yeah, and I thought that this episode went a long way to kind of confirming that by having her say that, because I mean, sometimes whenever you think about it, when you think about like watching conversations between people, and then when you look at it as watching conversations of people and the hive, you know what I mean? Like that's her being straight up honest, like in a way that regular humans are not, you know what I mean? So it's like when she says that they'll probably never learn anything about them, which makes perfect sense within like how science works, you know what I mean? And I think that we probably never will. And I like that. I think the mystery is more interesting. And as you point out, with situations like this, I think seeing how people who are stuck in these situations, how they react to them, is kind of like where real drama comes from, like relatable drama that is human and can bring out heightened things that we all experience in our days and in our lives, that in a way that it can't be in normal stories. So I have another question here. Built factories that mass produce Magneto's Faraday helmet, about 6.5 billion of them, get Carol to demand everyone to wear them. Problem solved, ? This would work. Where do we feel like this is going to, like, where do we feel like the hive draws their lines? Do we feel like we know that more now that we're getting closer to the end?
Not really.
Bit. I mean, we don't have anything similar except for, Carol literally drugging her, and I don't know. It's hard to say. But they'd give her
they
an
drew a
atom
line whenever they didn't know how to deal with her in the moment. They left. Like that's sort of their move that they can pull out. Beyond that, they tell the truth all the way up until a point where they don't want to hurt her feelings, but they will cross that line, as we saw when she was talking to the bike shorts guy, when she pushed them about Helen's real feelings about her Waikaro books. But they wouldn't cross the line whenever she asked how to undo the joining. So that might just be the only line, huh?
So anything that would end the joining in that case. I mean, yeah, they probably,
which these helmets might actually do.
Yeah, that's the thing. They probably could solve the problem, but then the issue then becomes, A, will the hive let it get that far? And B, if they do let it get that far, there are certain aspects of this that we might need to account for. Like, yes, the connection part and awareness part of it would be compromised, but the inherent, like, built-in system in everyone's stem cells would sort of still be there. So it then becomes a new question of, can the hive still be the hive if they don't have a certain level of awareness? Like, would their behavior change? So basically this Faraday helmet thing is kind of assuming that it's the connection specifically that makes the hive. But then, like, they'd have to keep these helmets on forever if that's the case. I don't know if people would want to do that. I think it might create some new complications, but it is an interesting idea.
Yeah. I was reading a couple of these comments here. Let's see what I would like to do. We're getting into, I didn't really check with you guys on your time when we started out today because I was dealing with something technical at the very beginning, but we're kind of getting into this point where I'd like to give everyone a chance to, if there's something specific that you want to talk about before we get in, because we got a pretty good amount of notes here. That there's a lot of stuff, like as far as the relationship, I could still see spending a decent amount of time on. That's not really, a few days after the episode came out, that has not really gotten old for me. And then we also have, like I said, we got such a trove of information about how things work and what those might mean for the future. So I thought maybe what we could do is we'll just go around and, like, if there's something specific that you want to draw the group's attention to, and we'll get to see what people have to say in the comments too. Just everybody just do one thing or whatever. So we'll start at the top and go Gab, and you can go first.
Sure. Thanks. So one thing that I did want to mention, there's tons of things, but I had this thought about an outburst, an angry outburst. And we know that Carol's outbursts have been horribly deadly in the past, and that everyone is angry at her for her, like Lakshmi hates her for her outburst. She killed her grandfather. And part of me wonders if Zoja's well-timed kiss was to calm her down from a potential outburst, because they have a good thing going, but I feel like Carol was really pissed about how they may or may not have manipulated her with the cafe. And I feel like things come in threes, and she's had 2 outbursts. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a 3rd outburst by the finale, and if it could be Manuso's or if it's Carol, because Manuso's has this like kind of quiet, simmering anger. But I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on, like, are we past the outburst thing, or like, is that going to, like, I feel like the next time it happens, the consequences will be even more severe than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, this is something that we talked about last week, was that this idea that, because there was some question about, like, how you could interpret Manusos's like his strong feelings that he has that are anti-hive feelings. And it just came up to the idea of, like, all he has to do is get angry at them, right? Like, it's not like he has to come with his machete and, like, physically hack people to pieces. Like, he just has to scream at them, and he doesn't understand that yet because he hasn't talked to them. But I did want to, so I think this is an interesting point. I do think that's coming. I think the threat of Manuso's, it feels more real at this moment, because I feel like this episode was so much about Carol sort of having mixed feelings, developing this thing that she doesn't want to lose inside the hive, that will make it more complicated. But I wanted to, as you guys go around and put in your 2 cents, I wanted to know if you get, because when I first watched this, I was really surprised that when he threatened them, that there was no reaction or no, you know what I mean? Like he was quiet, and which is what I guess I kind of defaulted to by the end, was that it was threatening, but it was quiet. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't scream at them. But I was kind of wondering when I first watched the episode, like, can he do that, or is that specific to Carol? So I would just add that to what you already brought up. But I do think that there is I think you're right that the threat is persistent, and I think that we could see another big event before the end of the season.
I think it's possible that they were actually trying to cope, because you can see how when he's being threatening in the hospital, everyone's still smiling at him, and they don't seem all that fazed by it, and they literally offer him the freaking invoice that he's asking for, right? And which was actually a great moment. Like that was really funny. And then you think about how he's just getting everything he needs. But then later on, when he's actually approaching where Carol is, and the Hive becomes aware of that, and they become aware that he's actually maybe less than a day away, and that look is on Zosha's face, like that means that the Hive actually does feel a certain level of trepidation about him. So that leads me to believe that here in this scene, when they're all smiley and like, yeah, we'll give you your itemized receipt, they're actually just staying calm in order to placate him so he doesn't get too angry. So that's kind of an interesting thing there, because they're probably like they've learned from Carol that, okay, these people who have not joined us, there's a certain unpredictability about them. So we need to be careful how we approach. We can't just, like, not everyone's Diabate, right? So they have to be careful in knowing that some people might be Carol or worse. So it'd be cool if they actually bring back that plot device of, the convulsing and everything by the end, because if it comes back, like you said, it's going to be with larger stakes, much larger.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I like the little detail here that she's holding a local milk container.
A local milk container.
Oh.
That's actually.
And you brought up a good point, which is like they are pulling the resources of every person who's ever known this individual to kind of target and tailor their approach to them. So maybe the Hive knows that if you just give Manusos what he wants, like he is not a emotional outburst kind of man. He's not vindictive for the sake of it. Like he just give him what he wants. He's asking for a receipt, give him a receipt, and no one is truly in danger.
Yeah. I saw a theory that maybe it has to do a bit with sound, because I mean they only start seizing when she physically screams in their face. And when she's trying to get information out of Zosha with the drugging, they start crying, which is a different reaction. But yeah, so I think you'd expect something from them when he has like a knife to someone's throat, but it just seems like it's more if something's really loud at you. And I don't know if that has to do with like radio signals and whatever and how they react to loud sounds, but
it definitely could be. I know Zosha initially said that it's the negative emotions that make them react the way they do to that. So it could be
that is the way she described it.
Yeah, she did.
So it's like maybe with the screaming and the rage, that's like a fear reaction, and then with the crying due to Carol basically pushing them to their limits, that's more of a helplessness type of reaction. It's like, okay, we can't do anything. Hence the title of that episode being "Please, Carol." And I think as far as the episodes go in the series so far, that was one that really taught us a lot about the way these people operate, because there were so many subtle things, even from the fact that despite being different from Carol and despite all being one, like they still try to think in a mode of self-preservation. I think that was because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really feel like that was the first time that we saw the Hive do something specifically for self-preservation that was not necessarily against Carol, but sort of to protect themselves from Carol. Because before they all start doing their little exodus, there's a guy who actually comes over to the window to see if she's asleep. It's like, okay, she's asleep. Great. Let's go.
Like, let's get out of here.
Like that was absolutely insane. Like, because they did not even have to do that. They could have just started going. Nobody talked to her. They said, yeah, Carol, we're going to leave for a while. No, they were like, we need to ditch her. And then we'll get Patrick Fabian to leave her a voicemail, which is fantastic.
Funny.
So, yeah.
The last thing I'll say on that is I don't think Manusos will be the one to have the outburst, because even Carol, like even though she's trying to learn more about the hive in this episode, she still gets upset, she still gets emotional, she kind of gets back into her like snappy, angry self. And this is a huge stretch, but it was just one thing I wanted to bring up is the whole episode is about games, and obviously it's this micro symbolism for the game that they're playing. They're both trying to learn about each other. The hive versus Carol Manusos. It is like a game of chess. It truly is. And one thing that Zoja says in the beginning was like, well, Carol's like, we can't play chess because you would of course beat me. You have all the brilliant chess minds in the hive. And Zoja says, well, you're also missing a white rook. And the rook in chess symbolizes like strength, stability, and defense. And when I thought about that, I'm like, well, what if Carol is missing her rook and her rook is Manusos, and he is obviously the key. When they can team up, then they actually maybe have a shot at this chess game against the hive. But that's in line with Manusos being the strength, the stability, and potentially the defense. And I can't see Manusos having an outburst like that. And I really hope he does it. Like, I do think it'll happen again, but I hope it's not coming from Manusos.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it made me think of this other thing that I wanted to talk about. But I will give the other you guys a chance to bring something up too. But this made me think about the idea of like, well, what's after we get to that little bit of time jump and we have that scene where we see them in the kitchen together, and they got the radio show going, and everything is like, it's like real. They're like in a real living together kind of situation almost. Does Carol still want to? Do you think that tells us where Carol's at as far as, because I mean, I think that the story that the episode tells from the beginning is that she's doing this stuff, but she's also still fully on board with undoing the joining. By the end, do we still think that's where she's at?
I think the turning point of the episode is like after their kiss, after they sleep together, because all the information she gathers is pre that point. We do not visit, Carol does not visit her whiteboard again at all in that second part of the episode. And that's basically, again, we go from their kiss, now she's writing Waikaro again, which, like I said, I think is that sort of active choice of, I'm leaning into this, I'm taking their suggestion to write, even though I lied about writing earlier, but now I'm actually going to write because I do think that will make me happier. And then I think the time jump is deliberate. The time jump is to show us that she's been living in this little bubble, this little fantasy. I think she has given up for this time her investigating and writing at the whiteboard. You know what I mean? I think that's just the function of the time jump in the episode. You don't really do it like that otherwise, other than to show that like she's been in this state that we just saw for this period of time. And yeah, you just brought up like my favorite shot in this episode, especially because they did this same kind of window shot too back in episode 3, where it's the same sort of reflection through looking out at the grave. Though at that point she didn't have the headstone and everything yet. But now she has it. And then Zosha comes through, popping right over Helen's grave. So I think that is visually showing that she is like distracted now. And yeah, I think Manusos has bad timing, right? And that's the irony of this whole thing. If he had taken the hive's help and come earlier, I think Carol would be a lot more on board. But I think she's going to be like a little annoyed and a little peeved when he gets there because he's popping the bubble of her fantasy here. I think she just wants to be here, wants to live inside of it, and like doesn't want to be reminded of what she's quote unquote supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it is. I think that is definitely a big part, because like you said, they do mirror that scene that from earlier, and it really does mark the passage of time and the passage of where she's at, as far as the way she feels about the situation. And we understand what Manusos went through to get there. Like when we see him pouring that hydrogen peroxide on his his back, and like we know about all of this, but she has no idea who he is or what he's
Brutal,
gone
by
through
the
to
way.
get there.
Just brutal.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I love how visceral it is, because you can tell that this guy is willing to do whatever it takes.
And if he got there a day sooner, or I guess a week sooner, it might have been completely. If he would have got there in the middle of her 40-day isolation, they would have stormed, stormed the gates and started to turn things around. But it's pretty up in the air right now as far as what he's going to find when he gets there.
Yeah. I like that the show is giving her an emotional conflict, though. I think it just adds a whole other layer that makes this more interesting, because so far Carol's just trying to save the world, and it's just like your normal sort of material obstacles in the way. Then it's just kind of like any other hero's journey. But I think once you add in that sort of emotional cost of like, okay, now I'm gonna lose something if I go to my original goal, that just like adds a whole other interesting layer here for our character.
Because that's where the drama comes from.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have some points that you want to hit that have not come up otherwise in the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could talk a little bit. I mean, we have talked a lot about like, manipulation versus love and everything, but I'll just talk about something that I was kind of arguing with people about on TikTok, which was I think we can all agree that like Zosha definitely has a bit of like manipulation to Carol for sure. Whether the intentions are good or bad, like the effect is inherently manipulative. But I was definitely having discussions on like how manipulative Carol is being, because in my point of view, I don't really think she's being very manipulative in terms of the fact that like the hive would tell her anything. She does not have to enter a romantic relationship with Zosha. She doesn't have to date Zosha to get any of this information. Like, she's literally just asking questions and getting answers. And she knows they can't lie to her as long as she's not like running at them with a syringe and yelling at them. Like, they will tell her anything she wants. So I don't know. Cause I got like one comment on my TikTok where they were like, oh, I think she was like making up the thing about train whistles in order to segue into like asking them about how they communicate. And I was like, that is not how Ray Seahorn is playing that scene at all. Like, I love that scene because I feel like she has a very like earnestness to, oh my gosh, like I've never told this fact to anyone before in my life. And I was like, that's such a great piece of acting. And I feel like that's kind of taken away if you think it's some like Machiavellian power trip that I just like don't think feels very Carol-like. So yeah, I just see Carol's motivations as a lot more like, I am feeling things and I'm writing things down so that I can stay committed to my mission and sort of like try to put these feelings away, because, we talked about that, she writes down they eat people like immediately after she kind of has her first vulnerable moment with Zosha, even though she's known that they eat people for like 30 plus days, but she only chooses to write it down there because she's like, oh my God, like I need to remind myself that she's part of the hive. Like, Yeah,
we've all hit that kind of feeling when we meet someone that like, that kind of just rocks our world. We're like, wait a minute, like I need to come back down to earth a little bit here. They eat people. Don't forget what we're dealing with.
That made me laugh. So yeah, so I think she's getting good information of this episode, but like I just don't think it's inherently manipulative on her end because she's not actually needing to do anything coercive to get the information. Like, it's just being brought up to her. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on Carol and some of the discussions I've had on other platforms as to like her POV versus Zosha's.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I went through the lens that I did was the idea of making lemonade, because I think that the show, the writers are aware that people will want to try to find black and white answers and see things through that. But at the same time, like that's not going to work for any of these characters inside the story that they create in the reality that they created, right? Like we can see that already because Carol's being softened by this romance, and the on the other end is Manousos who refuses to be softened. Like, I mean, I figured this episode was going to open with him, with the time jump of him being cared for by these people that he hated, and then trying to make sense of like what's right and what's wrong. But he didn't. He rejected the care. Like he was like, I'll just go out there and die. Like I'm cool with that. Like that's fine. Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, is that the right way? I mean, we're just talking about a consequence in the immediate reality of like, if he would have just taken their ride and skipped the gap altogether, they would have dropped him off on Carol's front doorstep in a time when she was much more receptive to it. But, his thinking, his rigid way of interpreting this new reality that he's trying to fight through has made it so he couldn't do it. So I think that there's a lot of that in the way that these things play out. Like you want to say it's this or it's that, but that's not really how it is. And so I think like with real people, you know what I mean? And I think that's the thing with Carol is it's both things, you know what I mean? I think she is actively doing an investigation. She has that feeling inside of her that she wants to undo the joining, but falling in love is like a hell of a drug at the same time, you know what I mean? And that's happening. And she can, and she doesn't have to be completely manipulated. She can understand that she's being manipulated. And it could be about the fact that like, man, I know this isn't real, but I'm feeling something real anyways. And like, what does that mean? Like that's just as interesting to me.
Yeah. They brought that up in some interviews too, of like, I don't know, just what love is, and if it has to be exclusive or not, right? In terms of how real it is, like, is it not real because Zosha loves everybody equally? And I think our initial instinct is to say, well, no, it's not real if she loves everyone equally. But then, she brings up the idea of like, well, is that a fault of Carol's? Like, isn't it still a valid form of love in a sense? And is this just new love in the new world, right? If you I think it depends on your acceptance of the situation, right? Like if you just accept that this is life now and it's always going to be like this, then maybe you can accept this new type of love, or perhaps that's a reason to, fight for the new world, right? Where love means something different, where it is exclusive and not something that they feel towards everyone. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is the beauty of like Vince Gilligan shows and characters, is that I think, like you said, people really want to read people's actions a certain way, or almost have an uncomfortability when it comes to people having cognitive dissonance and maybe acting in ways that are antithetical to their beliefs. But, that's people in real life. Like we're literally all hypocrites. We all do things that don't really make sense with our belief systems at one point or another. And I like that he's able to actually capture that with his characters, because that feels real.
Yeah, you also bring up a good point about the love. And we've gotten so many good looks at Carol's whiteboard for her Wakaro book, and there's something about the elixir is a love potion, and the hints in her writing, and it does make me wonder if love, like, not to be too cheesy or like love conquers all or anything like that, because I think like it's Vince Gilligan too, we have to keep that in mind, but I do wonder if there is this idea of love being able to leak through in this kind of weird and odd and messed up way, and it's not black and white, and it doesn't have like the pieces don't fit in pretty. Like when we saw Zosha before she's getting on Air Force One to go to Las Vegas with Kumba, she looks back in episode 2, and we don't know, was that like something leaked through, like a real attraction, or was that manipulation, or what it was. But I agree with what you were saying earlier about, I do think Carol is still in kind of detective mode, but I think what she learned in Vegas is she showed up there just to find out that she knows less than Kumba and the other unaffected, even though she's been like playing a hard ball. So I think she had a little bit of a change of heart, truly, which is like, well, I could still be learning things, but also enjoying myself and having fun while I'm doing it. And then, yeah, there's nothing like kind of falling in love. Like it turns you upside down a little bit, no matter what your larger objectives are.
Yeah, and I think another thing about love in this equation of like the questions is that is something that feels uniquely human to us. You know, this idea that we love, because loving is irrational a lot of times, right? Like whenever you know, obviously we've all fallen in love with someone that we shouldn't have. Every human being understands that, like for the wrong reasons, like having a strong attraction to someone and just being like, this is bad for me, but I'm still overwhelmed by the way that it makes me feel or whatever, you know what I mean? So when we think about, like we were talking about art earlier and the absence of art and how it's important that she can give that to them, love is the exact same thing, right? Like if you love everyone the same equally, then love is not what we know it to be, you know what I mean? And that's one of the things that we think of when we think about individuality mattering, is that it's something that makes us human. You know, we love, it's not the most rational thing we do, but it's like very real. Same with art. You know, we create art not because we need to, but because it's a way that we can connect with each other on like a different level of you know, of existence. That's not just about survival or whatever. So it's pretty cool. Ebube, I'll give you a chance to is there anything that you wanted to bring up that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, a little bit. I've been thinking about sort of the relationship between fear and heroism in the show. Specifically how how the show itself portrays Carol in relation to, or I guess as opposed to Minosos. I think on some level they want us to ask, you know, which one of them is taking the approach that's correct for the world, which one of them is the quote unquote hero here. But thinking about Carol as a hero for a second, I think we're learning little by little that one thing she actually fears, which ironically is something that also kind of drives her, is loneliness. And I think she's been a lonely person for a long time, you know, whether it's the story we heard about her having to go to that conversion therapy camp, or, you know, the fact that she couldn't really write the way she wanted to because her audience would accept things a certain way, and then she needed her books to be marketable. Helen was working with her agent to make sure they were making the right decisions for her career. She's dressing a different way when she's on tour. Like, I think about Carol in the first episode, and I think about Carol in literally every other episode, and I'm like, it's not even the same, except for maybe when they went to Spain, but that was very brief as well, and she kind of switched right back. So this idea that eventually it comes to a head, and then the hive leaves Albuquerque, they just leave her alone, and she's there by herself fighting wolves in the middle of the night. We have that, and she's lonely, and she's gone through a lot. She ended up, you know, being that way for over a month, and now things are kind of coming back in this episode a little bit stronger. Like they're kind of starting from square one, they're starting afresh. And she's saying, like, there's a moment in the episode that I'm thinking about where she's saying that, you know, she'd actually be willing to pursue what she needs to pursue to get everything right, and restore the world to the way it's supposed to be, even if it means that they leave her again. She says, like, even if you leave me. So that's like, she's gone from running from loneliness to trying to use loneliness as, you know, a cover or fuel for something, to now trying to confront her loneliness to fulfill her mission. So it's like, does that mean she is actually trying to be a hero? Because I remember when Vince Gilligan was doing early interviews about the show when it was first coming out, he was saying that he was trying to write a hero. And I think on some level, Minosos is also a hero. His approach is just a little bit different. well, not a little bit, it's radically different.
Quite a bit different, yeah.
Yeah, so it's almost like, okay, which perspective is going to be better for the world? And that's one of the questions I find myself asking every week as we approach the end of the season. Because the show itself, it kind of like it even uses loneliness, of course, in the imagery. Like, of course, Carol has spent a lot of time alone, but even the places that she is. I saw something on Twitter about how, you know, the show cleverly showcases all these moments of getting us to examine the human condition through Carol's eyes, or at least the absence of it in the way we know, by situating her in all these places where we have to look at kind of the waste of sequestering. You know, like she's living in a cul-de-sac, for example, which is like a place that kind of just ends. There's lots of strip malls. And I think Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul did this too. Like they just showed a lot of weird stuff happening in all these like almost abandoned spaces that clearly were something to someone at some point. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, well, I think when you talk about loneliness and, you know, whose brand of heroism is better, I mean, I think maybe a point of the show will just be that you do need community, and it's ironic maybe that these two loners need to come together to solve this, right? We can't do anything alone, and I think it's
to break up this worldwide commune that has taken over.
Yeah, because he has the radio signal knowledge, but his vice is that he won't talk to the hive mind at all, so he could never solve this on his own. He does not know anything about them and how they operate in order to solve this. But Carol, obviously, that's probably the missing piece for her, is this a little more technical knowledge about the radio signal. So I think the whole point is that they'll need each other in order to solve this together. So, you know, I think that's kind of a point to kind of overcoming our sensibilities to like box ourselves in and like not interact with people.
Yeah, I think the idea of what a hero is something to think about too, you know, like the definition in our world and then in their world, the world that's emerging, you know, because I think that may evolve too, you know, like what does that even mean now? It's a good point. As far as I know, this episode doesn't really change anything. As far as it doesn't change anything as far as what the stakes are, but I feel like it changes, you know, this idea of the motivation, like is the motivation, and I do think those two people coming together could test that. You know, like what we kind of brought up before, like where you know, she's not going to be as into it as he is maybe at this point, but they could also bring each other back together. And I think that, yeah, that's very true, that they're probably going to end up needing each other, and maybe some of the other unjoined that we've met or we haven't met. You got to feel like Lakshmi will play some other role other than just being a complete nag for. Although that, I mean, they did play the answering machine message like 40 times more than what would normally be necessary to make the point about that. So yeah, so they could just be like, let's see if we could just have Lakshmi show up every few episodes to call Carol and complain and see how long people think that's funny.
I mean, all those people just have to give her another chance, really, because now I think she's in a better position to understand them, whether or not she comes on their side, because I do think at the end of the day, she still wants her individuality. She wants to fight for that. But she probably can talk to them from a place of more sympathy and understanding, because now she's had her experience with Zosha, so she can kind of understand how they feel towards their spouse, their son. But I think that'll take her a little bit, because now she's kind of in this very I don't know, I keep saying fantasy bubble, but sort of this like, you know, fever dream fantasy thing with Zosha. And I feel like she's like come out of it a bit. So, you know, in real life, and you just kind of need your third party perspective where you can kind of just see your situation from the outside and be like, okay, I've learned from this experience. Now I can maybe talk to the other survivors in a more productive way, and maybe I can get them on my side now that I can understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and it hit me when you were talking to Ebube about the different kinds of heroes they are. Like it hit me that because we've watched him take these heroic steps, like these crazy things, like he, going through the gap and everything else.
Yeah.
But if we think about like where he came from, like he was like a weird dude sitting in a thing, listening to a radio wave thing for like 9 days. You know what I mean? Like he might not be all that good. Like he might not be all that good at getting Carol on his side because he's just not that good at life. You know what I mean? Like
because they're driven by different things too. Because like Carol clearly has been driven on some level by loneliness, but they clearly both have a sense of responsibility. But I wonder what drives Minosis is like sense of responsibility. Like, is there some kind of like spite in there? Is there some kind of maybe even just like dislike for people in general, dislike for the world? I mean, because it doesn't look like Carol has clearly a love for the way society is, and like she's championing individuality. Minosis isn't really championing anything in particular. He's just really, really against the people that are taking what isn't theirs.
If you really simplify it, it's almost like he hates that they didn't follow the rules.
Basically.
Yes. You know what I mean? Because he has this thing about debts, like paying your debts and
that's exactly what I'm getting at.
Stole this. Yeah. So I feel like there's just she believes individuality matters. He kind of just doesn't like that they didn't follow the rules.
Yeah. There's such an order,
which is like a nag,
which is he moves.
Yeah, which is kind of like a weird naggy, not all that attractive personality trait, really.
Yeah, he definitely
doesn't really warm the heart when you think about it, Like he's a scold. Like he's just a lifelong scold that wants to hold people make sure people are following the rules.
Yeah, I think we had like wondered if he had some sort of like religious background or even some kind of like culty thing. I mean, he did have he did have some sort of like religious imagery. Not that everyone's like that, but just like if he was like very, very, very strict growing up in terms of like, this is right, this is wrong, no exceptions, having like almost too strong morals where he can't see the gray in a situation, that might be
there's like
a
no
problem.
nuance of him.
It's actually interesting because his worldview and the way he sees things is so black and white in a way that mirrors the Hive. Like we were talking earlier, like the Hive can't have a gray area or they won't, continue on the virus. And for him, I don't think he has a gray area at all. It's either you've paid for it or worked for it or you've stolen it. And Carol is going to be that bridge because, I mean, she's stealing things, she's stealing paintings, she's lying. Like, clearly she doesn't operate in the same strict moral code that Minosis does. Maybe Minosis even has more in common with the Hive in the rigidity of their worldview. And Carol is like the one in the middle, which I think would be super interesting. I mean, I think the show has done such a great job of adding so many layers and raising the stakes that I'm at first I was disappointed in episode 7 that he didn't get there to her, but now I see how everything has transpired the way it has so purposefully that it's going to be so epic, or it's going to be either like horrible and crazy and uncomfortable and awkward, but it's going to be epic when they meet up for sure.
Yeah,
I know he's not going to be very happy. I'm a little nervous. Like what he's
gonna be like, where'd you get that painting? Like, where's the receipt for that $50 million painting?
Yeah, or just like if Zosha's gonna stick around or not, and then does he talk to her? How does that work?
The fact that they're even interacting is going to be an issue for him. Like, immediately, because he just can't handle that. Like, he doesn't even talk to them except to tell them that they're doing everything wrong. And Carol,
you're not my mother. My mom is a bitch, and give me my bill. Like that's the extent of his well, I guess he burnt his car in front of them despite them. I can't bring the car with me, but you guys can't have it either. So let me catch it on
and it's
fire
not even like they were trying to take it. They were trying to transport it for him, but he's like,
yeah, they were gonna carry it by helicopter to exactly where he wanted to go. But you can't really blame him from not knowing that he can trust them in that situation. But at the same time, I mean, it says a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're hitting the 2-hour mark here, and so we should probably start to think about wrapping things up. I do have a couple of super chats I haven't had a chance to get to yet, so let me catch up on those real quick. If you guys have any closing thoughts you want to think about, or if you guys in chat want to start shouting stuff, maybe we'll see it there. This is a thing about the time of the signal. Mexi Man and Cheese, thank you for the 5. Don't forget the signal is 6 million years old. I don't know that we know for sure that it's 6 million. I think they said
600 light years away.
That we know it's 600 light years away.
Kepler, but we don't know the age of like 6 million years.
What I remember is Davis Taffler saying that we don't know how long it's been repeating. It may have been repeating since the beginning of time, but I don't remember there ever being actual clarification on that. I could be wrong, but the power required to send the message could have melted the previous planet's ice caps into a water world, which is, yeah, that could be true. One of the things about Kepler 22b is that it was the planet in Raised by Wolves, which is a show that I covered before. So I did all of my research into Kepler 22 back then. And so when they mentioned it here, like I didn't look that stuff back up again, but I do remember that being the case. It's like twice as big as Earth. It's in the habitable zone. It was one of the first planets that they discovered when they started looking for places that were in Goldilocks zones. So that's why it's famous. That's why different stories have used it. And the water is it was an important clue when they figured out there was water there, because that guarantees that probably some sort of life has developed. But they could be saying that it was a natural disaster. That's definitely true. The Real Rebel Eric, thank you for the 5. Do you see a major conflict coming with Carol and Mano? Maybe a death coming, Mano or the puppet girlfriend? Carol in love with a puppet can't be good. I've seen a lot of people say this, that he would kill her. That feels like, at least right now after this episode, that feels like a line that if he crossed it, it would be hard to figure out how they would ever see eye to eye again, like her and Carol. Like, I feel like right now we're in a place where it's like, how will Carol, who's just getting a taste for this new life that she might be able to enjoy, is gonna respond to his rigidity as far as like not wanting to deal with the hive. If he killed the hive member she's fond of, it's kind of hard to imagine how they would come back from that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But actually, I don't know if we talked about this yet, but the finale episode is called La Chica o El Mundo, so the girl or the world, and in Spanish. So that obviously sounds like something Manustos will say to her, whether word for word or that sentiment. So yeah, I think that's kind of going to be the central conflict, is that she has to choose between the girl or the world. And obviously he'll know about that if he's like saying that to her. But I don't know if it'll lead to death. And to be honest, my thinking of it not being death is honestly just like a little bit more thinking outside of the show, like the types of promo they do, and just the fact that there's not that many cast members, and like, would they kill one off that they're like introducing towards the end like this, just logistically. But yeah, I definitely see conflict there, just based on the fact that that's going to be the central plot point, it seems.
Yeah, I can see a different kind of show doing that, but as far as what this show has sort of revealed itself to be through the first 8 episodes, like I don't feel like it's going to have a twist like that. That's just not what I would expect, but you never know.
Yeah. There was also that line of Manusis's that he repeated a lot in the 7th episode. That was like the girl saves the mouse from the trap. And so I was doing a lot of my finale theorizing based on that. Because I think the immediate obvious one that people are going to is like Manusio saves Carol from Zosha. But I was thinking that Zosha would be the mouse because the mouse is where the virus originated from. So then I was like, oh, is it like Carol is saving Zosha from Manusos in some way, or Carol is saving Zosha from the trap of the hive. So those are kind of like my two little like theories as to which direction we could go. I guess it just depends if like Manusos is being like violent in some way. I don't know why she would necessarily have to save Zosha from him, but maybe she does if he's being a little like antagonistic towards like the idea of the two of them or something.
Yeah, because they chose that line. I mean, even if they just found the tape and they wanted to use that tape, there's still hundreds of lines they could have chose to feature in the script, and they picked that one out for a reason. So it wouldn't be all that surprising to see a connection there. So we got one more here, or maybe two more. Sorry. Rock the C-pop. Zosha will end up in Manusos's machete because in the final episode of the season, Carol will choose Zosha or Manusos. Is Zosha an individual?
Well, that's a big second question.
I would have maybe thought, like, I definitely thought in the beginning when Manusos was introduced that there was a chance that he might be a one-season character, like just sort of a chaos agent, but that's not how I feel now. I feel like not enough stuff's happened to kill him off and it'd be satisfying. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you would have to have a whole lot of back and forth between him and Carol to build up tension about like why they can't both exist inside the story or something along those lines.
Yeah, this whole thing feels set up for him for like a next season, basically, as his like big season.
Yeah, that's what it's feeling like now. Like I said, when he was first introduced, I could have imagined if you told me that it was 50-50 or something, that maybe he would just pop in, sort of dominate this second half of the first season or whatever, and then there would be resolution. I would make sense, but I don't feel like we're at a point where resolution is imminent. And this idea of Zosha being an individual is something we talked about. There is an individual named Zosha, but I don't think we met her yet, except for that one little story. This is another one that I saw when it popped up. Vegan Dilemma, thank you for the 10. Have you considered Zoe being a Trojan horse? Now that she's kissing Carol, the join can modify Zoe's strain of the virus transmission using Carol's frozen eggs. And this sort of transitions into thoughts that we have about the finale. Obviously, this is something that they've hinted at from the beginning of the episode where they introduced the eggs. We talked about the lawyerly way that they talk about, yes, we will not violate your body. Like we're not going to stick a giant needle in you. We promise. But that doesn't mean that if they can find a different way to get a hold of her stem cells, and a couple of my guests pointed out that there are no stem cells in eggs, but there are processes that you can create situations where you can harvest stem cells. And this is not something that seems to have been on Carol's radar. She hasn't thought of it and brought it up. So yeah, I mean, I know the a lot of people last week were talking about the Zosha is pregnant theory, which I don't really love. But the eggs are the eggs. Like they at some point this is going to be important. We can agree on that, right?
Yeah. I think just the way you write stories, like there's just no reason that you introduce that fact in episode 3 and then again have that very lawyerly language where there's an obvious loophole for how this works. Like I just think basic story writing structure, like those two things have to be connected. Because I know some people were coming in and they were like, well, scientifically, it's like really, really hard to do it in the lab and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, I feel like the show's already kind of using like 90s science, to be honest. Like, you know, like truth serum is not really proven that effective. Like, I think it actually has the same, like you could actually get the same amount out of people with like literal alcohol, I think. So I think so. Some of these things, like they're not getting that realistic with it, to be honest, like, because it's more of a heightened absurdist world in a sense. So yeah, I think just writing wise, that has to come in. We'll see.
Schrodinger's, I guess, eggs.
Yeah, Chekhov's eggs or whatever.
Chekhov's eggs, yeah.
Chekhov's eggs, yeah.
What are some of the other Chekhov's things that we have if we were to take stock going into the finale, like things that we expect to see pop up in this finale?
Unexpected things, you said?
Well, no, things that we would expect to see in the finale.
Yeah, like loose
because
threads.
Like things that they brought up and that have just sort of been out there.
Well, this one's a little meta because it's not really canonical narrative wise, but I'm expecting on some level to see some kind of flashback, just because I think Miriam Shore, who plays Helen, is credited for 3 episodes and she's appeared in 2. So the fact that she hasn't appeared in that 3rd one makes me think we're going to learn something new about her relationship with Carol, or something that maybe happened in the past that's going to inform the present. So while that one doesn't come from anything that has actually been set up, from a meta perspective, I'm curious as to what that could teach us if it does happen. So that's one thing I'm looking out for.
Oh, wait, someone said Chekhov's belladonna flower in the chat, and I was like, oh, I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah, because originally when I saw that, I definitely thought of it as just as Zosha, like as someone beautiful but dangerous and poisonous. And if she does ever bring Carol into the hive, then that's the danger and that's the poison of like literally spreading the virus to her. But I don't know. That's the thing. I was like, are they just going to surprise us at the end of the season and they turn Carol into a hive member? I don't know how the show goes from there, but I guess they could do that.
Yeah, I whenever I looked up that painting, there was a really like for the print where you buy the print, there was a really funny story about O'Keefe getting they flew her to, they gave her like an all expenses paid trip to Hawaii to paint I think it was the Dole Fruit Company, to paint a pineapple and paint the plant, like the pineapple plants or whatever. And she went there and she just drew flowers and painted flowers and all these other things and ended up doing the pineapple job in New York. Like they had her, like they sent her a pineapple to her apartment in New York so she can make the actual painting. That was the funniest story that I found related to that. But this idea of, it's a beautiful thing that is also poisonous, and it's also something that people have used as in beauty care too, right? Like I think I saw something about like people would use it to dilate their eyes to make them bigger and shinier, and maybe something along those lines, which is kind of a neat connection. Okay, so I think that we can start to wrap it up here. We'll go around and you guys can plug if you have anything that you would like to, any other, like I'm not in a hurry necessarily, but we should probably wrap it up in a reasonable amount of time. So so you could do the introductions in reverse, just who you are again, just in case people are just coming in, where people can find you. I'll post your links in the chat this time. And if you have anything else that you want to throw out there before we leave, that's cool too. Like I said, I'm not necessarily in a hurry, but I didn't want to hold you all hostage either.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, should I sorry.
No, you can.
Should I start? Or I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
He said reverse order, so I wasn't sure if
Oh,
I
reverse
should start.
order.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Okay, go. You start.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it that way.
I didn't hear
Okay.
that.
It's cool.
It's all good. I'm Ebube. I'm from the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. We have been covering Pluribus every week since release, and it has been a blast. We've covered a bunch of other stuff too. We took a little bit of a summer break, but after that, we covered Gen V and Slow Horses, and that was pretty interesting. We've got some cool stuff coming up. We're going to be covering Industry in January. We're going to be covering A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the new Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones show. So we're very excited for that one. However, tomorrow we have something pretty fun coming out. We're kind of Bankole, who's also been on the stream a few times. He kind of gathered a little bit of a fun team to talk about what they think is 2025's film of the year. So that's going to be a fun discussion, and it's going to be out in the morning, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, we have a bunch of projects coming up as well in the new year. We're going to be ranking the MCU movies one per month, just like throughout 2026, and it'll be interesting to see what number one is going to be. But yeah, we cover shows like this week, and we also have kind of evergreen episodes and stuff like that. But we definitely are loving this show. Cris and I have been talking about it, and we're the ones who on the team who actually have been discussing this specific show. And yeah, it blows our minds every week. I mean, just you should have seen us at episode 5 when we discovered they were eating people. I mean, we did not react like Diabate, but that was definitely something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that was the funniest moment for sure.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll go next. I'm Cris. Well, he just covered everything about Popcorn for Dinner, which I was guesting on all for Pluribus. You guys should go check out episode 8. It was definitely my favorite one to talk about. So if you want more about
actually the one where she talked the most, 100%. Like she was so excited.
I don't think
I
realized it, but I was like, we gotta hit all of these scenes. Like I need to give my in-depth Stersha analysis here. Yeah, so you can hear me on there, and then I'll plug my TikTok. I'm Cris, so CRIS Cinema, because I've been doing Pluribus recaps on there too, and I feel like developed a little bit of a community there. So yeah, follow me on there, and also let me know what 2026 shows you want me to cover. I feel like I haven't decided where I want to put my time into yet, but yeah. So Popcorn for Dinner and Cris Cinema on TikTok is where you can find me.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Pete, and it was so much fun talking to you both. And thank you for all the amazing, funny, nice comments in the chat. I'm Miscellaneous Gab on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and I am deep into covering Pluribus right now. I talk a lot about these kinds of shows, so if you like Severance, Pluribus, I'm also kind of covering Dark, which is an old show. So I cover old shows, new shows, movies, and theories on my channel, all kinds of stuff. Also, always leave me a comment if there's something else I should be watching. It was actually you guys, my commenters, who turned me on to Pluribus. So thank you so much for that. In terms of upcoming, I'll be doing a pre-finale pregame live about an hour and a half before the finale airs. So if you want to come hang out and chat theories and just hype each other up for the finale, hop over to my channel on Tuesday because it's coming out a bit early. So that'll be a fun little pre-Christmas get together for everyone. And yeah, overall, it was just so much fun hanging out with everyone tonight.
Yeah, I was thank everyone for coming out tonight. This episode, I knew whenever we were making notes, I was like, there's going to be so many things that we're not going to ever be able to get around to, because there's just like this. Every time I went and I obviously watched the episode, then I went and took notes, and then I made a video. And like every time I would pick up something new, and it was so hard for me, like the way that I think, like to just stay focused on specific threads, because it all works together so well to just make your brain like just start, like the wheels start spinning. And like there was a lot of stuff that I thought that, I wanted to hit on, but at the same time, like I think we had a pretty good conversation and we hit on a lot of the stuff. It's not really, maybe not all of it, but enough of it. And I appreciate you guys coming, because like I said, in the past, like I like to do this because I spend so much time thinking about it. And then it's nice to hear other people's thoughts. And especially like when it came to the romance angle here and some of the theories and stuff, like I thought I got a lot from both of what you guys put out this week. So I think my viewers would feel the same way if they're not familiar with your work. So is there anything else we need to go over before we get out of here? Anything that popped in your head at the last minute?
We're ready to.
Not particularly, though. It probably is worth reminding people that the episode will be coming out on Tuesday, well, I guess Tuesday, Wednesday instead of Thursday, Friday this week because of Christmas. Just in case anyone who came in after we said it doesn't know.
Yep. Yeah, it is coming out early. And like I said, we will still have the Sunday stream as normal. That's been locked down for a while. Aaron will be here, Courtney will be here, and Chris will be here. But I might put something together before that if some people are available over the holiday. I'll let you know. I'll make a post about it if that comes through. But yeah, if not, then thanks everyone for coming out. Thanks to all the people who contributed with questions and live chats and everything else, or super chats. That was very generous. And I guess we'll only one more. It's kind of sad, it really is kind of sad that the season's almost over now.
Yeah, I've been enjoying this so much.
I really have been. I was trying to explain it to someone who didn't they don't really. I was like, yeah, like I like my job, like I like what I do, but there's a difference, like sometimes there's shows that are like I can't get enough of, and then there's other ones that I just sort of have to put my head down and get through it. And this is a rare one, you know what I mean? Like they can't all be like this. So
yeah,
it's been a blast. I'm glad you guys were all able to come out and enjoy that with me. And I'm gonna take us out. So I'll see you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.